Today, we'll be discussing three main related topics. Okay, number one, the early signs of mental stress in the child and that the parents can look out for. Number two, the importance of creating a conducive environment at home for the child and how do we do it? And last but not least, some parent-child communication tips. And after the discussion, we'll have a Q&A segment where you can ask our panelists questions. Okay, so I hope that all of you can feel free to ask a lot of questions. And without further ado, let's dive into the first topic, the early signs of mental stress in the child that parents can look out for. So as the child is growing up, he or she will face different stressors in life. And stress in children is multifactorial. What I mean by multifactorial is that it can be different factors such as academic stress. For example, they are very stressed over academic results, or they have very high expectation of themselves, or the expectation come from others. Or it can be social factors, problems with friends, BGR issues, changes in their life. It can be moving house or maybe changing school, or even family-related factors. For example, loss of a family member or parents conflict, parents undergoing divorce or separation. We must know that stress is a normal part of life, and healthy levels of stress helps us feel motivated. However, when the stress becomes unmanageable, it can turn into distress. And if the child is at a young age, he or she might not know how to identify or cope with the distress, which might affect his or her mental well-being. So therefore, it's important that as parents, we are able to spot the telltale sign that might signal that the child may need additional help. So what are these telltale signs that we can find? Okay, some of these telltale signs include significant changes in their usual behaviors or routines. For example, social withdrawal, school refusal, irritability, mood swings, as well as physiological changes like appetite or sleep changes. And on the other hand, children with good mental health generally can feel positive about themselves. They have healthy self-esteem and are generally confident to cope with the challenges. And when they cannot cope, they know how to seek help, and they generally have healthy relationships with family and friends. So after hearing so much from me, I'm sure many of you will be interested to hear Minister's observations and experience as a parent of two daughters on this topic. And also, how the government supports parents in promoting children's social emotional well-being. Minister, please.
Thanks, Brian. Actually, you are the expert. You're the clinical psychologist. I think my track record is just I'm a mum of two. And I think just now Ben had said that he's a father of two. And then over here, Kelvin, he is a father of three. So I think we all have collective experience. Yeah. So thanks, Brian, for the question. I think firstly, we need to recognize that children are unique individuals. Even children from the same family with similar experiences growing up at home can come out with quite different personalities. I think we have to recognize that. So just now, Brian had talked about symptoms we can look out for. I think as parents, hopefully you have spent enough time to have a good idea of what our children's personalities are, because I think reference points are actually important. Some children are introverted by nature, others are extroverted by nature. So whether or not the child is experiencing withdrawal symptoms and so forth, or is showing different signs of interacting with others, you actually have to reference it against some baseline. And that can only happen if you know your child well. So I think a very key and important part as a starting point is that parents must spend enough quality time with your child so that there is a warm, nurturing and trusting relationship built up between parent and child already, and it achieves two purposes. The first purpose is that you then have a good reference point to benchmark internally your child's behavior, and then you're better able to recognize when the child is actually exhibiting signs of distress. Secondly, if you have a warm and trusting and nurturing relationship with the child, when the child experiences issues, they will feel assured that they can actually come to the parent as the first line of support. And I think that's what parents would like to see. So I'm just going to stop here. And if you don't mind me, Brian, I will toss the question also to Kelvin as a father of three, and yourself and Ee-Lyn as well, because Ee-Lyn's at Fei Yu and she's come across many families as well. Yeah. So Kelvin, you want to take a stab at the question?
I think I really want to echo what you said. Especially parents are the first line of defense, because I have 3 kids and my eldest is already 17 this year. So what I can share is really what my wife and I try to do is that we always try to drill home the point to our kids that, our home is always a safe place to come home to. No matter what happens outside, whatever feels you outside, you can always come home to us and we will not judge you. So I think that's a very important concept that we have to tell our kids, that no matter what happens, home is always where you will feel the safest. And to do that, I think we parents have to take the first step to stay invested in our kids' lives.
Thank you. Ben, you want to add on?
I'll just add that, it's home is totally important, and it is where, like you say, where the child and parents should feel the safest in talking to each other, sharing things. But I think one thing as parent, and I'm learning this, my children are very young, like 4 years and 4 months old. So I'm very, very new to this. So I'm not qualified to speak about this at all. But I think one thing we have to, and learning from my own child, I think one thing we have to learn is, as parents, it's not our job to have all the answers. It's not our job to be the number one person that knows everything. Because once you feel that way, that's where the judgment comes to the children. That's when they do something, hey, then you start judging. But instead, I think what we need to make of our children feel is, we are not perfect ourselves. So we're all learning. So they can tell us things and we can just talk about it. So once they feel that safe is that space is so safe, then they open up. Then they share the worst things that they go through in their lives. And that to me is very powerful. Then you can together work on, okay, how do we make it better for you? And that's something I'm learning for my 4-year-old daughter, right, who's now going through stresses. I know it's very sad to say, but even now, stresses in school, people calling names and all that stuff. So yeah, that's my experience so far.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Well, I can share as a mom of 2. I have an older son who is 15 and younger is 11. So I think for me personally, I think like what Ben shared is about unconditional love. Because, children will have good days and bad days. So does parents. We have good days, we have bad days. But I think in these good days and bad days, how do we communicate unconditional love to our children? Sometimes it could be non-verbal cues, whether a wink, a tap on the back, or say, oh, you got this. Or sometimes it could be just a hug. And so I think children need to know that the way we show care and concern is actually through in our non-verbal and verbal cues that we demonstrate on a day in and day out basis. And I think this is something that I would just leave with you. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. If you don't mind me, and Ee-Lyn and everyone else, I'll just add that I think many would know that we have an interagency task force on mental well-being. There is actually a consultation process happening right now. So members of the public who are interested in this topic can share your views. I believe the consultation process ends on the 7th of August. So feel free to share your inputs. I'd like to highlight that there are 4 work groups in this interagency task force on mental well-being. And the first work group is actually focusing on family and young people. Yeah, and the reason why the first work group focuses on family and young people is precisely for the exact reason we have all been talking about, which is that families are a first line of support and defense when it comes to mental wellness issues. And through my engagements with schools and with parents, one thing that parents have raised with us is that sometimes, depending on the nature of their relationship with the children, they may or may not know how to actually start a meaningful conversation with their child. Sounds a bit strange, right? But this is actually feedback that we get from parents. So they have asked, how can we help them, be it a task force or schools and other organizations such as MSF, help them with conversation starters? Because you actually want to have a meaningful conversation with your child and not a conversation that ends off with just a yes, no answer and the conversation ends, right? So what are those conversation starters? And what MOE, MSF are working jointly on is we're looking at how to put together like a parenting resources, parenting toolkits to better equip our parents so that they understand the societal challenges that our children face nowadays, be equipped with that language literacy, emotional literacy, mental health literacy, so that they are able to have those meaningful conversations with their children. And in so doing, understand the mental well-being and mental health concerns that the children have. Thanks. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you. I think I've learned so much from the panelists, and even though I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm not yet a parent. So I think there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom from these parents, and I do totally agree that the relationship between the parents and the child is very important. For me, my practice is to see the children or adolescents who are already here. They come in, they have some kind of issues or distress. And I would say most of the time, okay, there's some issues in the family as well, okay? And it got to do with communication breakdown, or the way the parents role model, or the way the parents, try to teach them. And I would say most of the time, the parents have the best intention. They want the child well. But somehow along the way, the communication breakdown, the relationship breakdown, and it ended up being not in a very ideal state where, like Minister Sun said, sometimes even the parents have difficulty trying to strike a conversation with the child. So I think it's really important that we are working on this, working on parenting at a young stage, go upstream and try to see whether we can help parents or future parents, okay, be better parents. And hopefully my job will be easier. I will see less patient. And I think this is really important work.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, Brian, actually, since you're the clinical psychologist, this may be an unfair question, but I read some research, touch base with you as well, which is that actually a lot of the emotional awareness and emotional regulation skills that a child has, right, they learn these at a very young age. And actually, that learning curve when it comes to emotional and awareness and emotional regulation skills actually tapers off quite quickly, past perhaps 7 years old. Please let me know your clinical views as well.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So the young age is really the formative years. Maybe you look at the first few years is when they are feeding. It's for survival. But once their brains start developing after 2 or 3 years old, they are like a sponge. So they absorb very fast. Okay, whatever they see, they learn, and whatever the parents do, they learn too. And the parents are really the main two persons in the house that they get, interact with all the time. The children learn. But if the parents are very anxious, very kanchiong, sometimes they learn too. So it depends on what the parents show them, model them, and as well as what the parents try to teach them, and as well as the way they teach them. You can teach someone something using very gentle voice, or you can scold them when they do it wrong. So there's different ways of parenting, and it makes a difference in how the child will grow up, whether they will become more positive or they get some issues in life. I think it's really important.
Thanks for that, Brian. I think what I heard very importantly is the formative years.
Yes.
The formative years are defined as actually being at quite a young age, before 7, I think you mentioned, and also positive parenting. And that's why our triple P actually stands for Positive Parenting Program. Triple P parenting is evidence-based, it's bite-sized, because we recognize that parents are very busy nowadays. And the last thing we want to do is to make parents feel deficient. That is not our objective, is to equip our parents. Because like what Brian mentioned, I think parents have the best of intentions. But sometimes they just would like to be better guided on how to have meaningful conversations with their children, how to be there for their child, how to come across as assuring, and how also not to judge. Because sometimes the body language and the language you use actually at the spur of the moment can cause the children to form certain impressions, which may or may not be an accurate reflection of the feelings that parents have towards their children.
I totally agree. And I think some parents, how they discipline or parent their child is also from the way their own parents parent, right? So I've heard before that someone told me that he used triple P and 1C. So I asked, what is 1C? He said, Ken. He said, and as the time changes, we start to remove the cane. When maybe the older generations, that's like the main way that we discipline our child, right? But as we get changes, we try not to. I know some parents still do, and in Asian culture, that is still something that is used. But we try to change the way we parent our child. I will move on to the next topic. Okay, and the next topic is the importance of creating a conducive environment at home for the child and how to do it. I think we did talk quite a bit on this as well. So let's take a look at how we create a conducive environment. So children need a safe, secure, nurturing environment for their growth and development. Family has always been and will always be the anchor of our lives. So raising happy and resilient children starts at home. Your loving and supportive relationship with your children directly and positively affects their mental health. Generally, there are 3 things you can do to support your child's mental well-being. As Mr. Sun has said, firstly, dedicate quality and sufficient time to bond with your child in developmentally appropriate activities that they enjoy. So when I say that, it doesn't mean that when they are old, you don't do things with them. When you're young, you can play with them. Sometimes you can role play with them, some games. Okay, but as they get older, even teenagers, you can still talk to them. Understand what they are into nowadays. Maybe learn about TikTok. Learn about the latest K-drama that they are watching. Okay, so get into their world, no matter what age they are. And second, provide guidance for your child's behavior. So set rules and limits for your child, as they provide them with a sense of security and safety, like railings on the bridge. And on the other hand, encourage and praise your child's positive behaviors and support them in problem solving rather than trying to solve problems for them all the time. I think this is really important. You will want to provide guidance for your child from young. Some parents, they didn't do that. They might be too permissive. And they come to see me, right? And their child is 18. And they say, can I take away the handphone? What do you think? So my answer to that is no, it's too late, right? If you take away their handphone, you can chop off their hand, they will be better. It's harder to take away the handphone. Okay, so, but if from young you provide this structure, this phone usage, knowledge, and all this education, okay, they might be able to control their phone usage better. So always start from young if possible. But that said, it's never too late, So I don't want to create a very, very sad and depressing state for parents with teenage children. Okay, it's never too late. You can always build a relationship with them. Okay, and lastly, provide the opportunities for them to develop independence and social skills through appropriate role modeling and teaching. And I think what that means is that you are the best teacher for your child. Okay, you show them what it is to be a good person and they will learn. Okay, so the way you treat others, the way you talk to them and talk to others is very important. And provide the opportunity for them to grow as well. Try not to do everything for them. As they get older, it's like flying a kite. As they get older, you need to release more and more. Let them try more and more. Risk-taking is part of a teenage formative years as well. So provide them the opportunity. And I think I've said a lot. So let's hear from the 2 fathers in the panel for their parenting tip. So I know Benjamin has 2 young children. Kelvin has 3 teens. So can you share with us how you support your children's mental health and build up their resilience? Would Benjamin like to go first?
Yeah, and you said it right. The environment at home is so important because other than work or school, where we spend the most time is at home, right? And imagine an environment where both parent and child look forward to going back home to spend time together. That is a great foundation where parent and child can now have good conversations and memorable experiences that really they will remember, and also they'll really help them become stronger and closer together. So for me, I try to do two things amidst everything, amidst life. The first thing is making moments at home count, right? And the second one is truly listening and empathizing with my child or my children's feelings versus trying to be a parent, actually. So the first thing is making memorable moments at home. With all the busy schedules and all that, the one thing that I set aside every day as much as I can is when I go back from work, my daughter's already at home. I set aside about 15-30 minutes, and this is just me and her time. And this is when we go rollerblading, go for a walk, scooting, pick up flowers and leaves. And this is when I take the time to ask her questions about her day. But in a more broad sense, like I just ask her, how's your day? What made you happy today? What made you sad today? And I think that really helps the process of opening up. Initially, it's amazing. A 4-year-old, they already start saying, okay, school's good. Okay. I think, but the more you try, the more they open up. So one sentence become 2, next week becomes 3, and it's beautiful. And now she's asking me the same thing. And I'm trying not to say, okay lah. try my best. But it's beautiful because of that, I think it sets a cadence for that communication. I think that's really important. And now when I get home, nothing beats this feeling. I'm sure when a teenager, it won't happen anymore. But I open the door and my daughter's like, Papa, and it runs. And I carry her. It's a beautiful moment. Yeah, very sad. But I think that's why, because she knows, this is time to go down. And to her, it might be just an activity, but it's actually us bonding. And she probably doesn't realize it enough, but to her, that's so special. I think that's important. The second one is truly listening. Truly listening. So, as a parent, I think we tend to try to problem solve too fast. We tend to give suggestions or make statements too fast rather than ask questions. So my daughter experiencing right now, right? She came back home before the school holidays. She said, someone called me stupid, right? And in the way I was brought up, it was very easy to say, don't bother lah. Or, the person doesn't know what they're saying. Or, you think that's tough? You know what I went through last time? It's very easy to make statements. And it's easy because once you make the statement, you kill the conversation. Moments fast. Okay lah. I mean, easy parenting, right? And you think you're making them stronger. But having gone through that, I know it's not true. So instead, I check myself before don't say anything. Just ask, okay, how did that make you feel? Do you think that was right or wrong? Do you know the meaning of the word? So then we go through that, and it's a conversation. It's a tough conversation sometimes, right? Because as a parent, my child is being hurt. I feel like to be defensive, but I try not to be and ask. And very soon, my daughter realizes that I'm not interested in the incident. I'm interested in her, and how she feels. And I think that two combined, making those moments memorable and setting time, and then listening, that to me is making that whole moment so beautiful. Of course, there are instances where she's doing wrong, and you have to, hey, don't do that. You got to explain why. But at least every day, that time is a time where it's no distraction from work, nothing. And that to me is how I try to build that home environment.
That's really wonderful. Thanks for sharing, Benjamin. Let's hear from Kelvin. Give us some hope for parents with teenage.
Okay. I totally agree with what Ben has shared. Because as I have 3 kids, so the eldest is 17, the second is 15, and my youngest is taking a PSLE this year. So ever since my eldest was born 17 years ago, I've actually resolved to really set aside time with them when they were growing up. So meaning that I consciously made an effort to really spend time with them every weekend. So there would be times where every weekend me and my wife would bring them out, whether be it at the parks, or to playgrounds. So I think over time, I think that's partly how my blog Cheekiemonkies came about, because I started to share activities with fellow parents in Singapore, like where to bring their kids to. So this has actually, I think, has really amplified by COVID, because I think I just checked my Facebook memories yesterday, and actually yesterday was the first time. 2 years ago, it was the first day where the sort of circuit breaker ended, and then we actually stepped out of the house for the first time as a family. So the first thing we did was to hike. We went to a Jurong Park. So then that was amplified because from then on, because we have been cooped up in the home for so long 2 years ago, what me and my wife did was we actually took the kids out for a hike every weekend. Okay, so for the next 1 year after that circuit breaker ended, we actually hike every weekend. And actually we've explored a lot of areas because cannot travel, right? So we have hiked through Clementi Forest, we have found the Sembawang World War II bunkers, as well as the abandoned Keppel Reservoir. So through all this, right, because building mental strength as well as resilience, because in a way it promotes healthy risk taking and also problem solving, because if you hike through a forest, it's not like a playground. It's not like a normal, well-curated park like Botanical Gardens. The terrain is different. It's rough. So we let the kids take their own path and try to navigate, as well as try to navigate as in we give them they use their phone and try to find a way out. So I think it really encourages life skills, and through it, also what Ben has shared. Because when we are hiking through in the forest, let's say as a family, I found that there's no other distractions. We can't use our phone. We're focused on the path ahead of us, and that's when actually we can have meaningful conversations together as a family, and through walking or through hiking. And it is that time where, especially my teens, I think they will let their guard down a bit. Yep. And then they'll start to share. They'll start to share what's going on in their school lives, their work, their friends, their peers. So I think it is very, very useful at least for me and my wife, that we found a lot of things that we couldn't usually talk about when we are seated on the sofa watching TV together, because that's when time you just ask, today got school homework or not? Finish already or not? Then they say, yeah, finish, or haven't, later do. Then it's just like that. It's a very one-worded answers. But even so, going out, enjoying family time together as a family, or even just having a meal together. So which is why I'm also very happy that McDonald's has partnered FFL for this, because as Linda has shared earlier, McDonald's is a happy place, holds many happy memories for us, especially as a child. So when we put kids and parents together in a happy place, I think guards are let down. We are able to have more meaningful and deeper conversations with our kids. And I think that's essentially what is important, because to understand our kids and for our kids to understand parents better, so again, it's through those talks that actually my kids actually ask, Papa, what you do? As in, what you do at work? Or ask my wife, actually, what exactly do you do at work? So this is how we share. So they learn more about us as well. And the last point I would like to share is, at the end of the day, I think we parents have to accept that our kids will make mistakes, no matter what. But it is crucial how we parents react to them. So if we handle it correctly, I think it will make them stronger and more resilient mentally. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I think that's wonderful. Yeah. So have special outdoor activities with your children. And I think the best thing to do after hiking is to have a McDonald's meal. After you spend all the energy, right? As a family, I think that's the best thing. Does Ee-Lyn want to share about a positive parenting program?
Yes, I wanted to share about an example of a parent who actually just completed the P program. So I thought it would be interesting to share about her, because she has also given the consent for me to do that. So she is a mother of a 10-year-old son, and the boy has difficulties regulating his emotions. So what happens when he gets angry? He'll be very aggressive. He will smash tables, smash the keyboard and remote control. And so mom was often feel that she's at loss of what to do. So she sought help from the school. So the school teachers and school counselors actually said, we will support your child, and also asked whether she would come to Fei to receive the P parenting support services. So we saw the mom for a total of 4 times of 1 hour each. And I'd like to share with you what are some things that she said. So it says that mom said that she felt helpless, exhausted, worried, anxious, and sad, and wondered why was the son like that and what did she do wrong. And so when she was recommended to attend the program, she said that, why was she being labeled as a source of problem? However, she accepted the proposal and decided to go through the program, and the process, she said, was simply amazing. She learned what it means to use a calm tone of voice. She learned what it means to acknowledge the son's feelings and emotions. When he's angry, when he's frustrated, she learned to validate them. And she's become less task-focused and less focused on the goals. And over the progress, and she began to, like what Ben said, speak to the son but listen more. So she started listening to what the child wants to express himself, so that he does not need to use aggressive methods to communicate how he feels. So over time, she also acknowledged that through the conversation, that the son has his own set of beliefs and his own way of thinking that might be different, but not necessarily wrong. So over the course of time, the relationship at home has improved, And she has seen transformation, how she relates, her relationship with the child, and also how families relate with one another. And so with that, she wanted to share her story because she wants to encourage parents, or mothers who may be experiencing difficulties in this area to come forward. Because this is not a counseling program, but it's a one-to-one coaching session. So just want to reiterate that Triple P, we offer it through different ways. There's the level 2 webinars or seminars that we are partnering with McDonald's to offer it in the community. But there's also the one-to-one sessions that we provide to parents where we can handhold the parent and be able to understand what are the challenges or difficulties so that we can customize it to their needs. Because Triple P is actually consists of 17 different parenting strategies. I'm not sure if McDonald's has 17 different menus. I'm sure they have 17 different menus, in the menu board. So see the Triple P program like a menu that parents can go to pick whatever strategies that will be relevant to the current issue they're experiencing at hand. So this is the level 3, and the level 4 is actually a group work that we conduct online. And this is a small group of parents that will meet where they will learn these 17 strategies. They'll discuss how they can use it, but also an opportunity to learn from other parents as well, how they tried using them and what they might consider doing. So with that, I would like to encourage the parents that, that it's not, we don't want to stigmatize it, by coming forward, you're not the problem, but we want to see how we can maybe, customize or curate the strategy so that it can be applicable in your family setting.
We will now open the floor for Q&A. How has the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic been on the mental well-being of the young?
I think when we look at the statistics, we wrote out the National Care Hotline. We did see quite an influx of calls. At the same time, we also had the National Anti-Violence Helpline as well, NAVH. So these are two channels which we rolled out during the pandemic to make help available for families. And this is related to mental health because through the National Care Hotline, we realize that there are families who face financial difficulties. For instance, they may face conflict at home and they may not know how to manage conflict. And the National Anti-Violence Helpline was also a help channel for those families whereby unfortunately the conflict has gotten to such an extent that there was a danger of family violence being committed. So from these help channels that we provided and through the calls that were made through these helplines, we see that the family unit definitely was impacted through the pandemic. But I think there's always a silver lining because it then causes us to reflect on what we can do as a society to support the family unit. And that's why we're very heartened when we have community partners who step up to partner us because it's really a whole of society effort. I think just now both Kelvin as well as Ben have shared that you need to create moments for the family. Unfortunately, I think during COVID, families were stuck at home, whether or not it is work from home or home-based learning. And the constraints of the home limits the amount and variety of activities that one can do as a family. So I think that was a constraint and it does impact mental wellness. So I heard just now about how, Kelvin talked about going out for outdoor activities. Obviously, Ben, you had talked about, having meaningful conversations with your child. And just now, Ee-Lyn had talked about the important work of actually the family service centers. Because when through the helplines, we realize that there are families in trouble, there's actually a back-end triaging process. And where there are cases that require active case management, we actually sync up with the family service centers. And then the family service centers will come in. And we now have an initiative called FAM at FSC, whereby we have sort of regionalized the help so that these regional family service centers are then able to offer help at the local level to help these families who have met issues and met challenges, not only during the pandemic, but post-pandemic as well. Thank you.
Okay, we have a fun question here. Okay, which is harder, leading a company or being a parent?
You should ask Minister. I'm leading company, she's leading country.
Both of you can try to answer.
Half question. Well, I think the challenges are very different, but the similarity is this. To me, whether you're leading a company or being a parent, it's a lifelong journey of hard work, but it's very fulfilling and meaningful work. Of course, being parent is not work, but it's a you have to work at it, right? So at work and parenting is the same. You might have a good day. I might have a good day. I might have a good month. I might have a good year, but that doesn't mean next year will be as good. That doesn't mean the years ahead will be good. It's constant work that you have to keep putting effort to make sure that it gets you do the best for both the company and my family. So for me, it's very similar in that way. And as a McDonald's leader, it's what's important for me is I continue building on the brand, continue building on the company, so that this place continues to be a happy place for that really gives back in bigger ways to our employees, to our customers, and our community as well. As a father, it's almost the same. I'm trying to build on my children in their own lives. Really make sure that I build or I raise happy, resilient children that contribute to society in ways that they are passionate about. Not just how I do things, how my dad did things, and all that, but how they want to do things and how they want to contribute to society. And at the end of the day, I just hope, as they grow up, as they get old, they have touched and improved the lives of people that have been around them. And to me, that's happy days really. So yeah, it's same but different.
Thanks, Ben, for sharing, bringing up the future pillars of the society, and I think that's really important.